Hello, welcome to SEMA's Shifting Gears Back to Business, our four-part webinar series. This series is focused on providing tips and tools to help automotive aftermarket businesses to navigate changing business operations in this currently strange COVID-19 environment. My name is Gavin Knapp, and I'm Director of Market Research here at SEMA. I'm going to be your host. And before I bring out today's speaker, Bob Coakley, to talk about building customer confidence, I have a couple quick housekeeping items to go through. Today's session will be 1 hour, and throughout our time, we invite you to submit questions or respond to questions posted by Bob. Just plop them in the questions tab within the dashboard on your screen. Towards the end of the hour, we'll be addressing as many of these questions as time permits. Okay. So today we're kicking off the Shifting Gears Back to Business series with a great topic, building customer confidence. As we're all returning to offices and resuming in-person activities, people have a lot of different comfort levels with returning to what used to be normal. So how do we better reach our customers who may be worried about their health and safety or about spending money in an uncertain time? Well, today's speaker will help you answer those questions. I'd like to bring on Bob Coakley, who has a great title of Sales and Coaching Guru and Chief Inspiration Officer with Upgrade Performance Inc. He spent a lot of time working with business owners in the automotive aftermarket and other industries about customer connections. And he's got some great practical advice, examples, and resources that you can apply in your business right away. So, Bob, the screen is yours.
Well, thank you, Gavin. And with an introduction like that, Gavin, I feel like I can scratch my head like this, so thank you. One of the things I do boast is that I graduated from the half of the class that made the top half possible. So hopefully I can bring some great ideas. Hey, today, everybody, I'm excited about working with you. And we have a lot of smart people on the phone and a lot of smart people in this business. We learn a ton from each other. So I hope to be a facilitator that can kind of generate some of those ideas. So as Gavin mentioned, we can listen and hear you through the question box. So throughout today, I'll be asking you, what are some things you're doing? What are some things that you've maybe made some mistakes on? You could offer some advice to your colleagues here, and you know, make this as interactive as possible with the large group that we have. But to get started, I'd like to ask you to find that question box and just take a moment, share your first name in there, your business name, and maybe the location you're calling from. And then if you have a question right now, one that you're like, hey, I'd like to get this one answered, please type that into the question box as well. So that way we can get started. Okay, and I'm gonna get my video on. And there we are, okay. Am I good with that? All right, so again, get in that question box and let us know your first name, business name, location you're calling from. From the earlier responses, it seems like we have people from one coast to the next. In fact, I reside in San Clemente, California. I noticed someone from Ladera Ranch that's literally about 6 miles away. And then we've got people in New York, Ohio, Michigan, all over the place. So a friend of mine, his name's Josh, he began working on his 1979 Trans Am back in early 2018. And what you see in the photo here is nothing like what he originally acquired. It was, as you can imagine, it had a lot of work it needed to be done. So over the last 2 years, he describes this as a love-hate relationship. And many of you can probably relate to that. You know, you have this passion for a car and you want to get it to a certain point, but along the way, man, it just never seems to go the way you want it. Well, the great news is he is now driving this car around. It's not his daily driver, but he's really enjoying it. He's now into the fine-tuned stages of it. I mean, working on the upholstery and some of the different seats in the car. And most recently, he was having some of the instrument gauges reworked, and he's putting some parts in, and he was working with a vendor who was fabricating one of the gauges for him. In fact, last night he shared with me that the fabricator is just about done and is going to send him out the actual gauge to do that. It's that fine tuning type of thing. So the reason I start out with that story is, as we're in this era of COVID, we all have been running our businesses, and we're all in different stages. You know what to do, right? But just like restoring a vehicle, sometimes we get thrown some curves. And one thing I admire about people in this business is their passion to innovate, to react, to really overcome some of the biggest challenges. And when you're working on a car, sometimes some of the challenges you come up against are really difficult to overcome, but you find a way. And it's taken that type of mentality that we all have in addressing it to what we're doing right now, kind of doing business in an unprecedented time, right? So we're repurposing some of our skills in order to do that. And today, we hope to build on what you've already done. We know some of you are in different positions. Some of you who might be here in California, we're in a different stage of what the government is allowing us to do and the different restrictions. And it's very different than, say, the folks who are in, St. Louis or Tennessee, and then also down in Florida. So all of us come to the session today probably in a different position. And that can be a good thing. What I do challenge folks to do is to really look at today, not, hey, I'm already doing that, but how can I add or do things a little bit better? What are a couple of ideas that I can get from today? In fact, I like this quote so much, I put it on a coffee mug. It says, there's no limit to better. And you guys can relate to that, right? Maybe you've rebuilt an engine before. You're like, I want to tweak it a little bit more. And we know that you've got the core things to run a great business. And what this is all about is, what are some tweaks I can add? And that's my goal today, is to motivate you to identify a few things you can do to make your business run a little bit better, even in this difficult time. So my first suggestion as we get going here is to get a pad of paper out. Yeah, the old-fashioned pad of paper and a pen. And as we go through, things will get triggered in your mind, and just jot those down. In addition to that, feel free to jot down kind of insights and thoughts in the question box. I'll be able to tie into that and kind of modify and kind of make some customization of today's session based on your feedback and comments. So hopefully you're on board with that. Jump in that chat box. Let me know you found it. Now, if you're having trouble finding that chat box, if you have a 5 or 6 year old around the house or in your shop somewhere, they might be able to help you out. So they generally are pretty good at that type of stuff. So here's our desired outcome. We're asking you to invest an hour of your valuable time. And so I always look at, what do I want at the end? And that's my challenge to you, is in our challenge and what we want to bring to you is some very practical and tactical things that will help you get a little bit better. The topics we're going to cover, and we'll move through these relatively quickly, is number one, just kind of stakes to the game. What are some of the new protocols that we have to put in place as it relates to safety and the spread of this virus? And it's different for each one of us depending on the location we're in, and who our customer is and who our team members are. The next thing we're going to talk about is, how can we build confidence with our team members? And when we can make sure they're confident about doing business, about working in this scenario right now, once they're confident, they're going to be able to make our customers confident. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some specific things we can do to build confidence with our customers and give them permission to do business. Some people are out there, oh, I'm waiting to see what's happening. Others, no holds barred. I get it. But how can we get and build more confidence with our customers? Then lastly, and this is probably my favorite topic, is about being proactive. And this is doing some of those reach outs to your customers in a proactive way, in a creative way. And then at the end, I'm going to challenge you to get that pad of paper out and think about, okay, what are 1, 2, or 3 things that I can do immediately? Almost once you get off this webinar, what can I do and what can I, actually put into place, right? Because knowledge without action means nothing, right? So it's about hopefully getting you to identify a few things that you can do. So with that said, I got a nice introduction from Gavin, but I've been blessed to do this type of work for the last 20 years. And I've been in sales my entire life. In order for me to eat or pay my rent, I have had to sell something, or I've led a sales force. Some people sometimes say, hey, Bob, you want a diet? I said, no, I'm on commission, right? So I'm a business owner. I probably run into the similar challenges you do. So it's with that bias that when I work with clients and do things like this, I really think like a business owner. I'm struggling and trying to overcome some of those obstacles myself. Now, we laser in specifically on the human interaction. We believe that when you have better conversations with people, whether it's an employee, a customer, leadership with the entire team, when those conversations get better, everything can improve. And so with us, we're biased to that, but we tie in all the other business aspects, because when you can do that, you can take a machine that's running, say, at a 9 out of 10 and get it up to a 9.8, who knows, maybe even 11 out of 10. And I've had the opportunity to work with SEMA and PRI over the last 8 years, and I've had the opportunity to also run some sessions at the SEMA show, which we hope to go to this year. Let's next just talk a little bit about stakes to the game. And what I mean by this is there's just some new protocols as it relates to safety. I am not an epidemiologist. I'm kind of surprised I can even say that word. I had to practice for an hour last night, but I'm not one. I don't play one on TV. So please don't take some of this stuff. I am not going to be an expert on telling you what the virus is going to do when, but there are some common sense things. And I just want to share some resources that you can reach out to. There's some great things that you'll be able to, basically, I call it plug and play, kind of just bolt on, be able to use. And some of these things might seem basic, and they were to me, but I just actually went on the website and took a few minutes to search some of the things that they had there. And there's an amazing amount of resources. Just for example, the CDC website. I have problems spelling CDC. I wasn't getting to the website because I kept spelling CDC backwards, but I finally figured that one out. Hopefully you're laughing right now. Okay, anyway, but here's one of these printable documents they have, and I'm looking at it. It says, top 10 tips to protect employees' health. Easy peasy. Go on the website, print it out. You can actually use this in your business, right? And this ties into building confidence with our employees. So this is just an example of one of the resources that are there, but it's also providing some great guidelines to help you get started. Now, you may not be dealing with any of these issues, I get it. Or maybe you're like, hey, I've just kind of gone on, it's been status quo. Maybe you want to step back and say, hey, maybe there are a few things I can do that would help build even more confidence with my team. So go on those websites. The other websites I found extremely helpful are the state and county websites, because there are some differences between the federal guidelines and our state guidelines. What's happening here in California is very different than what is happening in Idaho. So obviously, you've got to be able to make adjustments based on the location you're in. The one thing we do know is there is some great resources out there. If you haven't accessed some of these websites, it might be something you want to consider there. The next thing is to know your customer. You've probably been on the other side of a survey where they reach out to you and they say, how do you want to engage? What are you comfortable doing? And I've gotten one, for example, from my church, and they'll ask, hey, are you comfortable meeting in a sanctuary? Are you okay outside? Would you prefer to stay in your car? So just reach out and know your customer and meet them where they're at. Personally, you might be very comfortable. I don't need a mask or gloves. I feel like I've got a good immune system. I'm okay. Now, on the other side, some people may not feel that way. And so we want to respect and help our customer build some confidence there. But one way we can do that for both our team members and employees and our customers is to let them know what we're doing. What are your cleaning protocols? And just put something down. It could be 4 or 5 bullet points. It could be something you get off the website, because there's also some protocols there. What are you doing? And just have a plan in place. It doesn't have to be 12 pages. It literally could be a 3-point plan, a 5-point plan. We clean at night. We clean at lunchtime. Some businesses, if you're a higher retail, you might have someone whose job is to go around every hour and clean the surfaces that are touched by maybe more people. So when you sit down and think about it, you can easily put together a very simple strategy that can help you, number one, communicate a plan, but also make sure everyone's aware of it and what you're going to do. And another thing that we've seen people innovate both in and outside of this business is by offering options. So some people are perfectly comfortable with the status quo. Others would prefer touchless or curbside. Again, it's an opportunity to meet customers where they're at. So whether it's taking payment, can you use some kind of electronic payment method so there's not even a transfer or a touching of a credit card? If you're doing web and things like that, obviously that's an option. Curbside, running out to people. Now, this doesn't apply if maybe you've got a custom shop or something where it's not a lot of people moving in and out. Again, just find out where your customer's at and address some of those things. There's some customers not coming in right now that you maybe haven't heard from. Maybe reach out to them and say, hey, how are you doing? Where are you at? What are you comfortable with? What's causing you to slow down? And it may not be the virus at all. Maybe it's financial or something like that. And then, of course, wearing face masks and shields. So if we have any paint shops out there, you guys are familiar with these and probably wearing them all the time anyway. But these are some of those stakes to the game. And as we kind of wrap up this section here, I want to just show you a couple of those resources. But this is that one I just showed you, the top 10 tips to protect employee health. And that's the other side of it. But I saw at least a half dozen of these types of resources on the website. So if you would, take a moment and think about what's one idea you got from this. What caught your attention? And I just want to ask you to write in the chat box and let me know that you're there, right? Maybe share with us, what are you doing where you are? What's something you did? Maybe just even small. You can type that into the question box for us. Do you have any advice? Is there something else that you might share there? And if you would like to address something or do something differently here, what's your next step? What's something that you would like to do? And Gavin, I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at what we've had coming in, but if anyone has anything there, then please go ahead and share that with us.
Yeah, the one thing, shameless plug here, I will say that SEMA also is providing a lot of resources for our members around this, information about what's going on, even across different states. But also we have a program that's offering basically ready-to-print signage for businesses. So if you are requiring masks or things like that, we've got files available to help you print out the signage to get up on your business.
All right. Thanks a lot, Gavin. And that also reminds me, I was sent a package from American Express Small Business, and they sent me a whole business opening package, and it was free. It was free. So if you take the Amex card, then that might be something you reach out to. So lots of resources there. And again, if you have any questions throughout, please post them in that question box. If you have any advice for us, put it in there. Maybe something you did, or maybe just like Gavin reminded us of the resources at SEMA there. What's a resource maybe you've had? If you're in Dayton, Ohio, what's something you did there? Or if you're in Moore, Oklahoma, better than less Oklahoma, right? Then what is it there? So go ahead and jot that in there, and we'll try to pick up on it. So moving on, now that we've kind of the stakes to the game, that we're operating safely and we can adjust our guidelines based on our customer, our state, and ourselves. Next thing is to make our employees safe. I call them team members safe, okay? Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Airways, Virgin Records, he has a quote that I really resonate with, and he says, take care of your employees and they'll take care of your customers. So it's my belief, if you can make your employees comfortable and confident to do business, to come into work, then they will do the same with your customers. So I would start here. What can you do to make everyone feel more comfortable and confident in what they're doing? A couple of tips that I have up on the screen. First of all, what are the rules? So people like to play games, but when they play games, they want to know the rules. So when we put together a list of rules, like maybe your rules are to wear a face mask when they're going to be working with a customer that comes in. Or maybe if they are working in an office setting and they're working close together, maybe the rule is we wear a face mask. That's up to you, but it's best to be clear so people aren't guessing. And remember, rules, I'll say this, rules are made to be broken, right? I think there are opportunities when we have flexibility. We can bend the rules when it makes sense. So never should we just say this is hard and fast, but if something changes, let's change the rules. The other way I kind of think about this is absolutes and nice. So there may be certain absolute rules, and you've got to be able to communicate that with your team members. And these also, there are some resources that I shared with you earlier from the websites, but put out a list of rules to your team members. Now, these might be the rules for each other, dealing with one another in the workplace. The other set of rules might be customers. What are you doing when you're working with a customer? I'm all about practicality. If you sat down for 5 minutes, you'd probably write down 3 to 5 things that really cover the major aspects of this. And by providing that clarity with your team members, they're going to say, oh, okay, this is how we're playing this, right? So just clarify what those rules are. And the best way to do that is to just sit down and maybe even solicit feedback from your team members, get them, or maybe identify someone on your team to own that and say, why don't you put together what you believe should be our rules here, engaging with one another and customers, take a look at it, and together you'll be able to come up with, I think, something really simple and practical. The other thing is, oftentimes, I'm required to wear a face mask when I go into a store here in California. Sometimes I forget. It's not like I'm trying to be a rebel. I just forget. So my daughter and I went out to Walmart. And when we walked up to Walmart, there's a sign and it says, hey, we're asking people to wear a face mask. I forgot it. We ran back into the car. I happen to wear a bandana. I kind of feel like I'm going to go rob a bank or something. But, it's reminders. So what I have found a positive way to do this is to, number one, catch people doing it right. But number two, remind them to do the right thing versus call them out for doing the wrong thing. So that's when it can get a little bit adversarial. And this applies also with customers. Hey, you're not wearing a mask, get out of here. What are you trying to kill me? You don't want to do that, right? Remind people, hey, just reminding people that we're asking people to wear a mask, or hey, everyone, tomorrow, remember to bring your mask in, or remember to wear a new one. So signs are a great way to do that. Simple, front of your store or where people come into work, things like that. And the other thing is meet your employees where they're at. So I'm working with this other client, and I had a call with about 6 different salespeople on the telephone, and they call on these retail locations, and they're from various states. And I had one person on the call who was completely fine. She had no anxiety about what was going on. So her mindset was, okay, I'm going to be safe, but I don't worry about a mask. I don't worry about walking in somewhere. And then on the other side, we had someone who had lost a close friend to COVID. And so he came at this very differently. And it was interesting to see 2 very different people in what they're comfortable with. So if you're not sure what your sensitivities are to your team members, then just ask them. So, hey, where are you on that? What do you think makes sense? That way, again, they get input and you'll have a super confident team. Everyone's going to be playing by the same set of rules, and it's going to help you just operate more effectively, efficiently, and harmoniously. Well, that one took a little bit. And then lastly, I think this is an obvious one. It's been addressed a lot lately. And hey, we're doing these meetings like this, GoToMeeting. If people can work remotely, a lot of businesses are realizing that these limitations they've put on themselves really don't exist anymore. With technology, I've seen call centers get completely dispersed. In fact, some of the technology can happen like that. So if you haven't looked into that, it actually can be relatively quick and easy, and monetarily it can be done. It's not an overwhelming expense. The other thing is, if we don't trust our people in the office, how can we trust them out of the office? So a great way to do that is, if you're going to go remote, test it. If you're a little uncomfortable, say, hey, let's test it out for a day and see what happens. That way you don't feel like you're committing for eternity and they get too comfortable because it's going sideways. But you might do it on a day-to-day basis. Maybe it's a week. Hey, let's give it a week, and then we'll talk after that. After a week, we'll just plan, you're going to come back in. Okay, that's the plan. 1 week, you come back in. The conversation doesn't have to happen. The next Monday, you're coming back in. So it sets the expectation, let's give it a go. And then throughout the week, you can have conversations. Say, hey, how are you doing? What are some of the distractions you're encountering? How are you overcoming that? How productive are you? Let them answer. Let them own it, right? And if you have metrics to look back on, you might say, hey, what do you think about your metrics? How much time are you spending on the phone? How many phone calls are you making? What do your sales look like? What do your cases look like? So things like that when you're dealing with building confidence with your team, and if you're thinking about remotely as well. So if you have the right people in place, more than likely they'll have the ability to do that with the technology. So just to kind of put a bow on building confidence with your team members, jot into the question box there any advice that you have for us. Maybe questions that you have. Just jot that in. That would be great, and I'll start checking that out. Okay. And Gavin, I'll read through a couple of these, but any thoughts from that perspective on building confidence with our employees and team members, or any resources that we can make folks aware of?
Yeah. I mean, mostly I think I'd just second the biggest thing is always going to be communication.
Mm-hmm.
If you make your employees aware of what they need to do, and then support them in it, then they're going to back you up and do it. And that's always the key.
Yeah. And someone put another one in here, Gavin. Thank you. I think that's so key, right? More effective communication. And I'll just hitchhike on that. Proactive communication. So rather than waiting till a problem comes up, make it a point. Maybe it's a daily temperature check or twice a day. How's it going? What challenges are you running into? What are you working on? So it might be when you walk in the office, how's it going? How'd it go yesterday? At lunchtime, when you come back from lunch or before lunch, hey, how's it going so far? What challenges are you running into? And then maybe the end of the day. So be deliberate about those. Someone also mentioned in the question box about the temperature checks and the different technology there. I went to a restaurant recently and I stood in front of an iPad and it did a temperature check for me. So that's a pretty slick system. My daughter and I went into a furniture store and they just had one of those, guns they shoot at your head. Kind of feels weird, but anyway, they check your temperature. And I may mention this again later, but when we're doing this, especially in retail locations, it's important for customers to feel safe. It's one thing to say that you're doing something, but it's another thing for them to see it. Because remember, I believe that a big part of this is emotional. So you might say you do this stuff, but do they see it? And can they, because what they see, they can feel, right? So it's like having faith. Oh, I have faith that they're actually cleaning these surfaces, but have they seen you do it? This may not be the right way to put it, but I'll say it. Put on the show. Get out there with cleaning fluid, wear a face mask, take temperatures. This is all putting on the show, if you will, but we're not just doing it to put on the show. We want to truly be clean. But when customers see this, they feel it, and that's going to build their confidence. So what are you walking away with? Jot down some notes on that pad of paper, okay? Get it down there. What's one thing you could do after this call that can help build confidence with your team? Maybe it's putting together a list of guidelines, things like that. Good stuff, right? Isn't this good stuff, Gavin? This is really awesome, isn't it? You're supposed to say right, Bob. So.
This is great, Bob. Sorry, I'm trying to stay out of your way, but you got so much to do here. I don't want to mess it up.
No, you're not messing it up. Listen, between you and I, we have a great beard. So, all right. So let's talk about building confidence with your customers. And one of the things there is we want to, number one, we're going to talk about being proactive. We're going to talk about communicating with them, kind of hitchhiking on what Gavin shared earlier, and some ideas on social media and emailing and phone calls and texting, how we can use these modalities to communicate with our customers. And then I want to share with you this idea that I've stolen from somebody, and I encourage everyone to steal here today. It's all applicable. Think small. Sometimes we get overwhelmed with what we need to do, and what I've found, what helps me get going is when I think small, I think in terms of 1, 3, and 5. So if you're, let me just go back here. So be proactive. What we mean by that is look at the rest of today, look at the rest of this week. What are some things you could actually put on your calendar, or activities you could say, or tasks you say, I'm gonna do this, and proactively reach out to customers. So don't wait for them, I hope they come in, but more like, hey, let me reach out to you and let them know what we're doing. Let them know we're doing business and it's okay to do business right now. So be proactive. Now, there's a lot of ways to communicate with our customers, and we might want to have a plan or a strategy for each one. And depending on your business, you can select the ones that your customers use most. And if that's a little overwhelming, just choose one, right? As I said, think small. Just choose one and then work on that one. Maybe assign a team member to do that. So if it's social media, maybe you're on Instagram. How can you plan and make sure you're doing posts about the current environment and letting customers know that you're there to do business. Of course, we have blast emails that you can send out. You can do phone calls and text. A couple of points on these, and I'll make them, is I found, number one, be authentic. And the other thing is make them personal. So it's one thing to do kind of a broad, Instagram post or Facebook post or things like that. That's fantastic. It's even more effective when you reach out to one customer at a time. And you might say, Bob, I got so many customers that it's just not going to happen. I get it. Some of you may be in that case, but some of you might be like, maybe you have a custom shop and maybe you've been busy, but you're looking to make sure you keep some good work on the radar. Hey, who are some people that you've talked to in the past? Jot down right now. You might even think, who's some of those people you haven't talked to in a little while? Just jot down their name. And after this, just give them a call. A phone call like that can really give them permission to engage. Like, you know what? I've been busy with a lot of other things. Things have been a little bit crazy, but hey, I'm glad you called. I want to get working on that again. If it's other customers that have called in the past and you have a list of them, just reach out to them. So phone calls and voicemails are great. Send a text. You can do this almost any time of the day or night. So I shared a couple of examples of how we're communicating to customers too, is building. So on the website here, I happen to use Pep Boys. So they just put front and center on their website. So have you updated your website? Have you addressed it and made it relevant to how you're making your workplace safe for the consumer, but also for the employees? They want to know that as well. Starbucks, another retail location. This is something that they sent out. I like this. My dentist sent this out. They're really fun. That's one reason I like going to them. They're not that good at dentistry, but man, they're a good time. But they sent this thing out. Hey, we're open. We're not shut down. Time to get your teeth cleaned, right? So I know these are some of them outside of our industry, but I think these are examples of how we can make these personal, how we can make it fun. Of course, this is a serious situation. Meet your customer where they're at. Be authentic. They know you. Be you, and just get creative with some of your posts like this. Now, I like this one. This happens to be in a salon. They got their customer involved. So here's a customer who's in their chair and they're taking a picture with their stylist, right? What if you went out in the shop or you're just in a retail location, ask them if you can take a selfie. When customers see other customers doing business, they're like, I want some of that, right? So hopefully this is triggering some ideas. And then right here, hey, do it 3 times a day, or with customers who are open to it. A lot of them love that type of stuff. Hey, let me take a picture with you with that product. Put it up on your social media page. And it's a great way to do some of those same things you're already doing, but just with a twist to let them know. So again, let's work on being proactive, reaching out to our customers. I'm kind of passionate and fanatical about this one. So just a quick wrap up on a couple of things. And really the purpose of me going through this is hopefully for you, all right, I'm going to think about that. Actually make a to-do list right now. What are some things? And at the end, one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, in addition to asking any questions, is to share with us, what's one thing today you were motivated to say, you know what, I'm going to do that. That's a good idea. And I don't care if it's tiny, because 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 3. So getting started, 1, 3, 5. I like this. You know what? You might say, I can call 1 customer. You might be saying, Bob, I can't call all my customers. I get it. You can call 1. I know you can, right? It doesn't take that long. I bet you have a name in your head right now. Write it down. Some of you are like really on steroids this morning and maybe had a ton of coffee. And so you're going to write down 3, right? Maybe 5 pop into your head. Okay, but just jot it down and remember, just reaching out to some of these key people, it's going to lead to more business, better relationships. You'll get some feedback. Are they uncomfortable? Why is that? What could you do to make them feel more comfortable and confident? Again, the phone calls, emails, social media, and I put this in here because I've gotten sometimes with some businesses, it's just overwhelming, right? So it's the Goldilocks principle here. You've got to have enough frequency with you don't fall off their radar, but at the same time, you don't want to motivate them to say, this person's making me sick, right? So passion, you want to let them know you're passionate about your business, your products, and what you do. At the same time, don't hit them over the head so hard where you come across desperate. I think about this in sales especially. There's two types of cologne, passion and desperation. And man, desperation stinks. So again, kind of use that Goldilocks principle and identify the right frequency so you're on their radar. When they're ready to do business, they think of you. At the same time, you're not, creating, repelling them from that. So I talked a little bit about this, but what's that one customer you can call today? Maybe write down, hey, 3 personal email texts you can send out today. So maybe you can't make the call, but hey, maybe later on tonight, and just sit down at your computer and write an email to a few people. Just reach out to them. Maybe the 5 social media posts. Right after this call, you could probably go out and take pictures in your business with your employees, actually having fun, do something fun as it relates to social distancing or something like that. Show them cleaning product. Just make it fun, make it authentic. Let them know you're there, you're alive, you're doing business, and you're excited to see them. It could even be a short video, maybe 10, 15 seconds, something quick. People really resonate with that. But what are 5 you can do? And lastly, just a reminder, be relevant, be fresh, be timely. The posts like that come across authentic and relevant, people are going to look forward to seeing them more and more. So there's some questions here, right? So question number 1, how can you make customers see what you're implementing before they come in as a way to encourage them to come in? That's a fantastic question. So I think a short video or pictures. So actually demonstrate it with employees. So maybe you get a can of cleaning fluid and someone with a rag, and maybe they have a mask on. And then you can put down below, hey, everybody, just want to let you know our cleaning protocol is we clean every hour. We use this blank chemical, right? Specifics really make them feel comfortable. The other thing, again, short video. You can post that up on the social media networks. And I've also found sometimes you can use the same video multiple times because not everyone catches it in their feed. So don't feel like you have to create unique content every single time. If you get a good video that is relevant and is going to be fresh, keep using it. Have you ever seen that My Pillow commercial? I bet you have, right? How many times, right? I like Mike, right? But repurpose stuff as well. So you may take the next step and invest a little bit more time and do another video or something like that. So that's my advice. Gavin, do you want to maybe add to that? I'm sure there's some more creativity out there.
Yeah. I mean, the key again is getting the word out, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen people put a lot of signage up if they have a storefront type of place. We've seen people put signs up even out away from the building in the parking lot, out by the street, really just making sure that people understand that they're doing business and they're doing business the right ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Bob, I have another question for you. Okay. So, a lot of this stuff, if you are a retail or you have a shop, you're really thinking about how do I bring a customer in because of the safety. What about if you're a manufacturer and you don't necessarily have your customers walking in the physical front door, but you still want them coming back and want them to know you're in business? How would you implement some of these things in that case?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of it is transferable. We sometimes, and maybe I'm even skewing the message today to that retail, but I have some clients that are more manufacturing based, and what they're doing, again, to stay in front of their customers is they're using social media posts through videos and pictures and letting them know what they're doing. And then they're sometimes letting them know they're using customer video and testimonials, repurposing those, or, hey, we just did this business, kind of keeping people abreast. One of my clients, they sell commercial film, and it's everything from the stuff you might put on a wrap in a car to point of purchase. They actually, you know what they do? They have the material that you print for those dots they put in the grocery stores and other stores, and all that signage. In fact, they've modified their product to do the face shield. So it's a manufacturing company, and they've been able to repurpose and make it relevant. And they've done it through updating the front page of their website. And then secondly, they have a social media strategy and communication strategy with their employees. Some of the employees, because they tend to be a little bit more business to business, they would put posts on LinkedIn, and they'll say, hey, here's a copy of what we're doing here to keep our team members here safe, so we can keep producing that product for you, so you can do what you want to do. Gavin, that kind of hit it, hopefully?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, fantastic. Well, I'm gonna start coming down for a landing here, and I'll just wrap it up with this last slide and any other questions. But I always like to look at, today, our desired outcome was you to leave with a few practical ideas, maybe even micro steps you could take, right? What was your key takeaway? What caught your attention today? What's something that, you say, hey, that was useful? And a lot of these things, I get it. They're probably just reminders, but, without doing something. So would love to hear from you in the question box. And if you have any other final advice to share with us or questions, we've got a little bit of time to do that, and then we'll come down for our final landing. So, Gavin, do we have some other questions that we've seen?
Yeah. So you mentioned giving your customers, quote, permission to do business. Can you expand on that? How can we do that?
So again, it's getting the word out. So that's either in a broad message, kind of let them know. I use the example of my dentist who sent out a broadcast email to all the clients, and it said, and it had that picture on it. And what she put a list of, hey, here's what we're doing. We're open, even for regular dental work. So you might list some of your services that you're doing. We're here, we're operating, we're alive and well. And you know what? You owe it to yourself to do the business. So it can be done in that broadcast way. I also think you can start by reaching out to customers on a more individual basis. And think about your team members. If they have a little extra time on their hands, have them chunk out, reach out to 5 customers directly each day. And sometimes that gives you further reconnaissance on why people aren't coming in or why they're uncomfortable. So these small little steps really can lead to big things.
Awesome. So switching to employees a little bit here, how can you positively reinforce when your employees are following the new protocols? Conversely, how would you handle it if they're not?
Yeah, I'm big on catching people doing things right. And so this may be kind of silly, but maybe use it as an idea. So if someone comes in and you're asking them to wear a face mask, well, maybe you hand them a little bit of a lottery ticket, like, hey, oh, good job, good job. Hand out a bunch of them at the end of the day or at lunchtime. Pick a thing out, I'm buying you lunch, right? So you're rewarding good behavior. You can do those types of things. And so thanks for doing that. Now, someone who's not wearing the face mask, you might just get a good one. Just hit them in the head really hard. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. But they'd remember that, wouldn't they? And but I subtly do this. I just might say, hey, Gavin, did you misplace your face mask? Can I get you another one? Right? So I just remind them, I don't say, hey, where's your face mask? That's going to start causing it's kind of like setting up a speed trap, and there's commitment and compliance. So how can we just in a positive way do that? The other thing is remind people like the night before, hey, just a reminder, or put signs up, things like that. Those are subtle ways I think that you can do it. If it gets to a point where someone is just defying it, that's a whole different conversation. That's where you want to get them behind closed doors and have another, if you will, difficult conversation. Help me understand why you're having trouble, meeting our guidelines that we've set up. What can you do to actually get on board with this? How do you think it makes other people feel? That type of thing. So.
Awesome. Well, continuing on the employee theme, as businesses reopen, as offices reopen, we're bringing employees back. How do you handle that transition? Partially because some people may still be worried about, the health and safety, but also some people have just gotten used to working at home and may not relish going back to the commute and the office.
That one, I always come at these things by helping the employee come to the right solution. It's something I practice with my daughter as well. If I tell her she has to do something, there's immediate resistance, right? People have pushback. So I try to get them into the equation and ask them questions and say, hey, what have you liked about working at home? What else have you liked about working at home? What else have you liked, right? You might ask them to kind of think about those, and I get that. They're going to kind of point out some things. A lot of times what has happened there is after the third or fourth, hey, what else do you like about it? They can't think of another thing. You know what they think of? Well, one thing I don't like about working at home is this. So they might uncover maybe something that's a drawback of working at home. So that's one thing you might try to have the conversation around that. And then the other thing might be, hey, I'd like to get your advice. What are we losing when you're not here in the office? What are some, what can we do to maximize your role in your position? What concerns do you think about you have about coming back, or what concerns do you have? So that way they at least can kind of share with you what's on their mind. Some of those things might be overcome, and you all might meet in the middle, right? Maybe it does make sense to be in the office sometimes and be remote. So open up. Don't feel like it's a hard and firm thing, but ask them the questions versus just telling them what to do. I think, and I call it helping them trip over the truth, helping them do the right thing by asking good questions. And you know what I do sometimes in those? I write down a few questions, so I'm not asking closed-ended questions. I ask what, why, how. Those help me. So I know we're coming up. Gavin, couple more.
Awesome. Well, we are approaching our time here. So, Bob, what I want to do is I want to give you a shot to wrap up. What are the key things? What do we need to know when we walk away from here that's just going to help us knock our business out of the park?
Yeah, I think one thing I always try to keep in mind is practical and tactical. And I think sometimes when things get overwhelming, whether it's, this is a new thing thrown at us, we all have had to survive in business. And going back to my story about my friend Josh, you're innovators, you guys have been able to adapt. Those same skills apply here. And then today we covered just a few things that we can address, and hopefully you're leaving here with some practical ideas. What are your protocols? We talked about some resources. Number 2, building employee confidence. We talked about some ideas that you can do there, hopefully 1 or 2 triggered. Next one is your customers. How can you make them feel comfortable, give them permission to do work with you? And then lastly, how can you proactively communicate? Kind of repurpose some of the things you would have normally done, but make them relevant in today's environment and do all of those things. I believe it starts with the 1-3-5, Gavin. You know, sometimes we leave these webinars and we're like, oh, overwhelmed. I want to just challenge you. Get that pad of paper out. What's one? Maybe it's calling a customer. Maybe it's printing out the CDC website. Maybe it's, you know, something like that. Maybe it's one quick post right after this call. But what I know is 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 3. But if you do 0, it's hard to get the momentum going. So I just wrap up. Knowledge without action is meaningless. I know my diet, and sometimes I don't act on it. So, hey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Gavin, over to you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time today, and good luck out there.
Awesome. Well, you know, remember, in these odd times, stick with the odd numbers, 1-3-5. All right, that wraps up our first Shifting Gears Back to Business webinar. Thank you all for attending, and thanks, Bob. That was awesome insight. We hope you're walking away with some great ideas that you can implement right now. We will be sending out the recording to this that you can refer back to, and you can even share it with colleagues. We'd love to get your feedback, so when you see the email request, click on the link, tell us how we did. We'll be back next Wednesday, same time, with Gene Marks to talk about cash flow tactics to position your company for post-COVID growth. If you're not registered, you can do so at SEMA.org/reopen and click on the webinars button at the top of the page. Also, that link, SEMA.org/reopen, will bring you to a lot of SEMA's COVID related information, including the signage I talked about. And of course, shameless plug from my department, if you go to SEMA.org/research, you can find lots of information we have on the state of the industry and what consumers are feeling right now in this crazy time. So again, thank you all for coming, and have a great day.